As what I think is going to be the final installment to my 100-hour series, I have spent the last few months working on ground mechanics. This is covering a wider variety of things, with the obvious like half flips and wave dashes, and at some point started focusing on whatever you call this thing. In the past, we have covered mostly aerial based mechanics, and so I thought to wrap up the series officially, I would work on something different. So, welcome back to the 100-hour series, and I guess say goodbye until I decide I suck at something else and want to go train it. But don't hold your breath, this isn't something I want to continue for a long time, if ever. Anyway, starting off with how I trained the first few things, I wanted to start basic. So I took myself into the dribbling course every few days and just didn't stress about anything. Made my way around at my own pace and just wanted to focus on my dribbling. Mix this with a bit of flicks in my normal gameplay and kind of just work my way through being comfortable with the basics again. That's not to say that I ever lost the ability to dribble or flick, but it's not worth covering here. If you want more stuff like that, check out the 100 hours of flicks video that I've done a while back. I don't want to bombard you with the same stuff I've done in a few other videos. Now, even though I was comfortable with things like wave dashes and half flips, I decided to try and use them in different situations and make them more of a normal thing in my gameplay. Beforehand, I would only ever use wave dashes when I'm trying to get back on defense after being down the field with no boost, which admittedly happens a bit too often. But throughout this 100-hour period, I found myself getting used to using it to save myself a lot of boost. For example, if I was on defense and an opponent was a decent way down the field, instead of boosting or flipping to make up the ground in between, I would chain some wave dashes together to close the distance. The reason I stopped flipping in these situations is because once you start a flip, you are locked into the motion of flipping and therefore cannot change your positioning until the full movement of the flip is finished. This means if something happens in the middle of your flip, like the opponent changes his positioning or flicks the ball over the top of you, you are unable to react to it. This action of chaining wave dashes together also will save you boost, which is incredibly important while on defense. So I got a lot more used to chaining wave dashes instead of flipping and boosting everywhere. Chaining wave dashes was kinda tricky at first. I'd get one or two and end up flying off or just side flipping all over the place. But I spent a decent amount of time working on the timing to get it all down in free play. A quick tutorial for these chain dashes. If I wave dash to the side, I would jump and tilt my car one way, then as the wheels touch the ground, I would jump again and hold the analog stick the direction I want to wave dash. Now for the chain wave dash, immediately after doing this first connection with the ground, you flick the stick back to the tilt up position and jump again. If that makes sense, you kind of flick it back to when you were first doing the wave dash. Doing it quick enough will give you the burst of speed you get from the normal wave dash, but then immediately pop you off the ground and get you ready for another one. Once you get used to this movement, you can chain them together over and over again, and you can very quickly find yourself making your way around the map without using any boost and being able to stop the movement and readjust if you need to quickly react to something. The other one of the basic mechanics I want to talk about very quickly is the half flip. Once again, a mechanic I was used to doing before all of this, but this time there weren't that many new ways to integrate it into my gameplay. And I don't really want to drag you through a minute of me being like, yeah, so I half flipped in my games. So avoiding all that, I'll just say, I know a few of you on stream have been asking for remakes of the half flip and wave dash tutorials because I made them in 2018, so let me know in the comments if that's something you want and we can revisit them and some of the other basics of the game. Next, something really quick I feel just needs to be said, power sliding. I forced myself to get used to power sliding a lot more in my normal game in order to keep up my momentum. If I was about to land after an aerial, power slide. If I got bumped, power slide. If I'm flipping around or wave dashing and want to keep up my momentum, even after I end up a little sideways, power slide. I've talked about it many times, so that's all I'm going to say today. It's incredibly useful, but you've probably heard me say it enough times by now. So, onto the new stuff I started doing. Pre-flips. I started using pre-flips a lot more in my gameplay in a few different situations. The main one was to keep possession of the ball by getting a slight touch to then carry on with. You don't need to think of pre-flips as something you just use to score. If you're slightly out of range of a falling ball and won't be able to catch it, you can very easily pre-flip towards it and make a touch. it's kind of difficult to explain, but making any kind of touch means that the opponent has to readjust. You have to think of it this way. If you look out of position, they will already have a plan for the ball once it bounces, or they won't let it bounce. But if you make that little pre-flip towards the ball and get that slight touch, not only can you maintain control of the ball, but it also stops them from being able to easily control it. Now, upon writing this down and reading it out loud right now, I realize that this seems very nitpicky and not useful to a lot of people, but these mechanics are very situational and very hard to explain the proper use of because they only get used in those very situational moments. But that being said, this is kind of the reason I'm stopping the series. Everything gets a little too specific to spend 100 hours on and hard to explain in useful ways. Look, anyway, the other way I started using pre-flips, if that's what you'd even call them in this situation, is when maintaining my momentum by flipping from the ground to the wall. Once again, situational, but is incredibly useful while collecting the corner boost pads. Instead of driving the car to the corner and taking the pad, instead try flipping a little earlier and angling your car so that when you land, the wheels make contact with the wall and allow you to cleanly drive away. This is something I saw a lot of the high rank players doing, which allowed them to break away from their own line of defense with pace. They get that initial burst of speed from the flip, but also land very quickly on the wall and now have full boost. The trickiest part about doing this is actually just learning to be comfortable flipping both ways. You never realize how much you don't like flipping a certain direction until you're told to flip only that way for an entire game. Personally, I only ever used to flip to the left because it was natural for my thumb to move inwards towards my hand. But if I needed to flip to the right in order for the wheels to hit the wall faster, I needed to get used to it. So, train. Head into free play and really work on getting used to flipping around the map both ways. Seems like the most simple thing, but once you start, you will realize how uncomfortable you are. And that's a big weakness in general. You want to iron out all the small things like this so that your overall ground movement is smooth and clean. Lastly, we get to the fun part, the goals. Trying to get a lot of ground play goals was a lot of fun for me, and even though I haven't really touched on it in the past, I had a lot of fun with fakes. Now, something to know about fakes are that they come from urgency. You are more likely to fake someone out when they deem a play to be all or nothing, or you put them in a state of urgency. This often occurs when the opponent is out of position and has to make a diving save to stop you from scoring. The other situation where fakes tend to work are when you go for something that's incredibly predictable, like you spend all game dribbling and flicking a certain way, and then one time you stop and let the ball drop and go underneath them. Or you put the opponent in a position that they're used to and then you change it up on them. Either way, fakes can't really be forced without work going in beforehand. There are the odd occasions where you pull one off out of nowhere, but just something to keep in mind. Now, when it comes to ground mechanics, I took a look at Evampel, and before you rush to the comments saying he should have been in the video, I asked him to teach me ground mech and he said he could only teach keyboard and mouse, and unfortunately, I am on controller. But after looking over his gameplay and highlights, I really wanted to learn the kinda wave dash spinny flick thing you see him do. I could already breezy and musty flick as these were things I learned in the past. This didn't stop me from scoring them though, but what I really wanted to focus on was this spinny thing. So, hours and hours and hours went into free play trying to learn how to do it. From what I know, you dribble, then pop the ball while spinning, either a tornado spin or just like a normal air roll spin, then catch and flick. Of course, Evampel can do this over and over with many spins and catches and 360s in there as well, but I just wanted to get the base level down. At first, very difficult. A lot of small errors that would leave my car backwards and stop me from being able to get a good touch and catch on the ball. It would bounce off or just not be in the right spot for a flick. Then, after talking to my chat, I saw that Pulse Crypto was in, and after asking him for a little bit of help, he said that there is a slight moment where two of the car's wheels hit the ground first, and then the second two. This then cushions the impact of the ball hitting the car and allows it to be nicely controlled. If I could get my car to have this sort of staggered motion upon landing, it would make moving into the flick much easier. So, once I started trying this, what do you know, it started working immediately. I was able to chain a few nice spins and touches together before transferring it into a flick. The movement felt much smoother and it felt like I could really start using this when I wanted to be a little bit flashy. Obviously, I am nowhere near the level that Evampel is at, but it's nice to see that after looking over some clips, spending a decent amount of time in free play, and with some help from Pulse Crypto, I was able to go from having no idea how to even go about this to being able to comfortably hit it every now and then. I'm not perfect with them, I've barely hit them in game, but progress is progress and I'm happy with it. Overall, everything mentioned in this video is easily trainable in free play and just takes time. I have videos for things like the breezy flick and wave dashes and half flips and flicks and dribbling and almost everything in the video already, but this 100 hours was just a way for me to train all of these things a little bit more and show you the kind of things I focus on and that you should focus on if you're looking to improve your ground game. Obviously, I don't think you should practice the spinny thingy if your focus is ranking up, but it's a lot of fun and I thought some of you would be interested. Now, that is the end of the 100 hour series. I can't really think of anything else I want to drop 100 hours into. All of the suggestions I've had have been like pinches and passing and defending. All suggestions that, yes, seem good, until you realize that equals up to like 4 minutes of stuff to talk about because it's all very specific. The goal of the series was to take a certain mechanic and break it down, and then after that take on a wider topic and break down the different aspects. Now I feel like I've covered pretty much everything I want to. So thank you for being a big part of this series. You guys helped me choose which mechanic to focus on each week and you were there helping and supporting every step of the way. This series is kind of what blew my channel up and took me from 10,000 subs to 100,000, and I really couldn't have done it without you guys. And who knows, I might start another series with the same kind of idea in mind. Maybe something like 1 week of training a certain mechanic. We'll see. Anyway, thank you for making it this far. I hope you enjoyed the video and I'll see you all next time.